Well, good afternoon. I think that John and I are standing between you and a buffet, all of you in a buffet. We'll definitely try to make sure that we hit the salient points. Um, Definitely my pleasure to be here. Served in the Navy for 21 years. Steve Lewis, I'm the division president at GXO Logistics. GXO Logistics, for those who don't know, is one of the world's largest global contract logistics providers. So basically about 1,000 warehouse and fulfillment centers, 27 countries. At the backbone is 130,000 employees making it happen for our clients. So a lot of background, both military and civilian side, in the contract logistics supply chain environment. John?
Thank you so much. First, I'd like to say this is an amazing event. The passion and energy. This is like a master's class in how to do the right thing by veterans and being a veteran champion. So thank you so much for all the panelists and everybody's energy here. So I'm John Lees. I'm a retired Navy Command Master Chief. I served 30 years. I retired in 2015. And since 2015, I've been in the talent acquisition as well as leadership and development field. I work for Serco. We are a premier defense contractor as well as in other government agencies. We're a 55,000 person company based out of the UK. I belong to the North America division, which is about 9,000 nationally as well as in Canada. We have all different types of roles and positions. We are a champion for hiring veterans as well as military spouses. I would say a large percentage of our roles match the skill set that veterans bring into the workforce. So I'm just happy to be here. Thank you.
So we have a little bit of a different off script, right? We're going to have a panel, but now it's just John and I. So we're going to have a little bit of an open conversation. So if you have any questions, we'll take them. But, you know, I was first looking at the abstract for what this talk was going to be about. And one of the first things I looked at was the translation of military skill sets in logistics over to civilian. And for me, my experience is it's been near 1-to-1. And so I know we had a lot of different panelists and conversations. I feel very fortunate that coming from a background of military logistics, that it was a connection for me. I'm going to follow Bobby's lead and give another plug. Later on, you'll hear from Orion Talent. That was my first job. And it was lock-wired for me to be able to go right from military logistics into something that was very, very well connected. So when I thought about this panel, I looked at our services recruiting websites and looked at the job descriptions, looked at the background, kind of reoriented myself, and then went right back over to GXO careers. And so we have hundreds of openings, and I could see a 1-to-1 connection there. So what it kind of made me think is, where is some of that miss for folks not be able to make that connection? Because if I know I'm biased and I come from the background, but you can see a direct connection from what is on the job description for a 92 Alpha or a 92 Yankee in the Army, and then also what we need as warehouse supervisors or leaders. So my question maybe over to you, John, is what do you see in that Serco? What are you hearing from hiring managers about, we think as leaders in the room and also as service members that there's a direct linkage. Where's the gap?
Yeah, so it's very interesting that this conversation versus the conversation this morning about the resumes. Everybody spoke to skill sets that were of soft skills, right? So we know veterans bring the leadership abilities into that, but specifically in the tangible field of logistics, operations, warehouse management, acquisition, things like that, those skills are clearly definable on resumes. So the ability to align the veteran up with a position, that kind of starts early on in the, especially in the interview process or even in the initial outreach process. So we at Serco, anyway, the recruiters at Serco, myself as the military outreach person, we really try to pride ourselves in being able to, before the application is submitted, coach or mentor the veteran into aligning the skills that they have in that field with the actual job description that is posted, obviously. And the other side of the coin is working with the hiring managers. to make sure that the job description completely matches the person that they're looking for, as well as the title of the role too. We've all seen that where hiring managers put together requisitions and the skills are not really 100% requirements. So we want to make sure that those requirements match up and it's clearly defined and it's attainable for the candidate as well.
That's a great point, John. I think one of the things that we try to do, at least I try to do as far as being one of those hiring managers at GXO, is look at those job descriptions and say, wait a second, are we really looking for someone that has a bachelor's degree? Because I know when I served with a lot of staff NCOs that'll step in and be able to just hit this straight on and do a great job. So I think it's great when the HR side can connect also with the hiring managers to be able to say, hey, how do we get and widen that net and access this rich talent pool of supply chain professionals?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's what helps, I think, create the relationship with the recruiter as well as the hiring manager. And then that spills over to the candidate because now the recruiter understands exactly what that role entails. They have a good feel for what the hiring manager is looking for. The degree requirement is a fantastic example of that. Is that something that is actually really needed? You know, because we know veterans have some difficulties with obtaining their degrees, or at least they have in the past. We're seeing a larger uptake with veterans coming out with degrees now. But and that goes the same thing for certifications. Obviously, in the technology world, certifications are the driving factors for getting these roles. And you'd be so surprised on how many veterans who are in one field want to transition once they either transition out or retire into another field. So to be able to advise them correctly based on those requirements is key.
No, very good. You know, one of the things I wanted to talk about also was just some of the trends in civilian supply chain and also in logistics. And we're seeing a massive digital transformation. So whether it's at GXO, whether companies investing in automation, robotics, connected intelligent IT systems, how do you think that's going to play out with the military transitioning service members and veterans trying to go from jobs that are maybe less technical within the warehouse and making that transition?
Well, I think now too, we were talking about this with some hiring managers, and I think it gets lost. And this is why you have to know your industry. The military members today, even in the infantry level, or if you're driving vehicles, the amount of technology that are in those things is amazing. A lot of them all have routing experience and things of that nature. So as it transitions over to logistics, and now we're talking delivery by unmanned systems and drones, delivery of logistics and supplies with that. So those skills are totally transferable with that. Totally transferable with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think we see that a lot of times the military might be literally on the cutting edge of some of those technologies. I know that one of our sites, we deployed a vertical lift module, and I had that back in 2006. At DLA. So it's not that it's always they're lagging, but maybe just not as at the forefront of some of the things that are a little bit more shinier or new.
Yeah, and to be able for that transition of veteran to make mention of that, because a lot of times the abilities that they've had, the duties that they've had, I think they kind of miss that. They'll focus on either a lot of the soft skills that potentially they think people are looking for. So it still falls back to be able to advise that veteran, making sure that they get the right amount of counseling and training during the TAP process, to research the company, research the job that they're interested in. I know you talked about culture a lot too as well. We find at Serco that is very critical to be able to make sure that our culture is aligned with military veterans as well. We pride ourselves in that too. So.
No, it's a good point, and I might have the name wrong, but I thought it might have been Jeremy that talked about don't whitewash your resume, and I think that's a great point because lost in some of these positions we all have as service members is so many unique elements. Whereas a company commander, you really are HR, coaching, looking at the financial aspect. Maybe obviously you're not profit maximizing, but you do have to land your budget. So it's a different type of a skill set. And if it gets whitewashed, a hiring manager can, and especially a recruiter can easily miss those.
Right. Project management, great example. I see a lot of senior level, senior enlisted folks transitioning resumes that, they detail, they civilianize the resume to say, hey, I'm a project manager of this, or I'm a project manager of that. They've been a caretaker for a budget, potentially guns, weapons, and ammo, but they hadn't really made any money, obviously, for the United States Army in any capacity. So to be able to explain that and make sure that they can interpret that over to the hire manager is critical. Yep.
No, definitely agree. So I want to open it up to see if there's any questions out there. Absolutely, yes, sir.
Catch-22 topic here, but we know that the military right now is having real problems with recruitment and with retention. When you look at transferring technical skills to the military to civilian, you also look at probably a 2- or 3-fold increase in salary or compensation. So what the military is struggling with is, cybersecurity professionals or whatever. Why stay in the military when I can make 3 times as much out the civilian sector? So on one hand, you're on the employer side. You're saying, come work for me, I'm here to resist this. I can give you 3 times as much. And yet at the same time, we're stripping some core technical skills for military recruitment. So I don't know if there's an exact kind of question there, but I'm really curious on kind of your thoughts on, like, you're pulling some great one-to-one skill transfer, and at the same time, we're pulling some kind of, I guess, key military technical skills from the military to the civilian sector. I don't know if that makes sense, or do you have any thoughts on it?
I'll tell you this, that's a fantastic question. I was at and this is a plug for military spouses. A few months back, I was at the MSEP conference, and the CNO came and talked about hiring military spouses. And one thing that was the most profound takeaway for me in that was that he said this is becoming a national problem. And it's the fact that E4 and E5 is getting out because their spouse is underemployed or can't find employment. They're getting out because they have to have 2 incomes to sustain the family. So it's like, that's what a light bulb went off to say, hey, defense contracting, other industries, we need to put down the hammer and try to hire military spouses, because that's going to in turn keep that E4 or E5 in the service, right? So think about that in your industries. And I brought that to my hire managers, and same thing, light bulb went off, and they seem to get it. So that's part of that answer, is to be able to provide that family a better wage. So they're definitely more employed with that. I see time and time again, I go to a lot of events, usually 3 to 4 a month, and I see that E4 and E5 trying to either get into cyber or get into IT or get into unmanned systems. And I, as the command mass chief in me, I'm like, well, why are you getting out? What's going on? But it's a little bit of a balance. I still want to do what's best for the nation. I want to see great young men and women in my service defending my country, but I also want to see them get great careers, and whether they come to work for Serco or not, that's great. If not, I hope they find a good landing spot at some other great company. But I think that's a very good point that you brought up, and we all need to be aware of that.
Great point. The only thing I would follow up on is that a lot of those of us that were that served and were recruited, a lot of it was to, for me, it was join the Navy, see the world, and it was also to learn a career, learn a skill set that I could take along with me. So whether that was a first termer or 21 years, I think there was a little bit of a contract and an understanding that I would be exiting, and it was up to the military service to then make me stay. And obviously that contract, I think where you're getting there is there's a divide, and so as a society, we're going to have to try to close that gap. Just like John was talking about, some of those points are going to be, with military families. Other pieces are, if you highly technical ratings and skill sets, obviously looking at those reenlistment bonuses, making sure that we're retaining that talent. Any other questions?
I'll just comment on that too. So I think the other thing is with that is, we're constantly, even in the civilian sector, you're dealing with attrition, right? There's always going to be another opportunity there. And I think you hit on it. The military has a culture. I knew I wasn't joining the military for 20 years to be rich. I mean, I don't know about you. You guys all signed up to be rich because it didn't work out for me. But I think that's one of the factors. You're staying because of the culture, the camaraderie that you have, right? And you're gaining valuable skills, and you're going to be that much more valuable, obviously, to the civilian sector. But we're having the same challenge in the civilian sector. We have cybersecurity people getting stolen from Verizon, going to other companies, right? So the grass is always greener on the other side. We see that all the time, right? I think it's just maximizing and being okay with turnover, right? At one point at Verizon, people would write off people that left Verizon and said, we'll never take them back. Well, foolish on you. If you didn't provide upward opportunity and mobility for that person, and they went and got it and came back with more knowledge to our company, shame on you as a manager. You're not thinking for the overall effectiveness of the company. So I think that goes for the military too, right? We have to be okay with people getting out at different junctures in their careers and meeting the demands of their family. That's fact, right? I think that's one of the biggest challenges I think that we have to just accommodate. We're good at adapting and overcoming, and the military is really good at that. That's kind of what I would also add in on that, you know?
That's a great comment. Talent markets adjust, right? This is what we've seen during COVID. Everybody started, working remotely. The Great Resignation, right? Everybody's heard of that, right? So I had a great call with Handshake 2 days ago. Everybody knows what Handshake is, right? Everybody in talent acquisition should. Handshake is basically a provider that connects companies with colleges and universities and students for intern programs as well as graduating students. Well, they found out based on their research with all the recent churn in the market and the layoffs, guess the survey shows from college students that they are now going to be avoiding the Amazons, the Microsofts, sorry if anybody's here, all those companies that are having these layoffs. That market is shifting now. And who's going to benefit from that? Defense contractors, steady logistics companies, folks like that. So I say right on, as Jocko says, good, right? Because that means that we're going to take advantage of that market. So the same thing for the military, right? They're going to get out. Hey, I'm going to do my best to maybe tell them that's probably not the right move, but good. We're going to take advantage of that. We're going to provide them a great job, a great career, and it's just going to be still close to the flagpole, especially if they're in the defense industry, right?
I like the Jocko positive reframe. I love it. It's fantastic.
Master gunner sergeants applying for a base PM role, right? Because they don't understand the title, that they're coming from, well, I've had people tell me, I have a friend who's sergeant major retired. They're like, we got an ops manager role. I'm like, do you understand what this person is? Like, and you want to make them an ops manager, right? Next to a 21-year-old kid, right? Like, so I think how do companies better help on their posting? Help military understand, like, okay, this is that E6 to E7. This is that how do you help them understand where in your org they fit so that they're not either overqualified for jobs, because I've heard that so much more than I care to in my life, or like that they're shooting for the moon because they're like, I'm going to be CEO today, right? But they're not, right? So how do we help military through our posting understand that translation so they can be good?
You or me? So I think that's a great question, Maureen. I think it really goes down to when you get down below that title and you clearly articulate the type of individual you're looking for and the type of experience. So for a sergeant major that might be, or a very senior enlisted person that's bringing a tremendous amount of experience, if we're saying you might have 2 to 4 years of managerial experience, then we're clearly showing that we're not looking for somebody who's got decades of experience, and that's not what the job requires. It doesn't mean that don't apply, but I think what we can do is for those folks that come in, and I think the other piece is once you get into the funnel, it's about properly sorting those folks as far as where they think they should fit. I know I've interviewed, John, folks that come in and they're looking for that ops manager role. And I say, well, you're command master chief. I have a role for you, but it's something different. And what do you think about X, Y, or Z? What's been your experience?
Yeah. No, same exact thing. I call it expectation management, right? Same thing that we, our younger enlisted troops are counseled on, as well as junior officers when they get to a new command. Expectations management, right? So you need to understand what the company's culture is like, what the company's structure is like. What is it, just like an org chart right off the bat, to make sure they understand what they're looking at. So to be able to help advise and coach them to better understand what those positions are. And we get that wrong. Every company gets it wrong when it comes to, in your job titles, what the name of the job is versus what the actual role is. We could do a lot better. I know I can do a lot better and help advising folks with that. If you look for, you go on clearance jobs, you look at any of those jobs that are posted, not that I've done that at all because I'm good where I am, but every job, it's not easy. It's not easily defined. It isn't. So we could do, as an industry, we could do a lot better at that.
Well said. Well, I'll echo what you said, John. I think this is a great event, a great forum. I'm truly impressed with all the talent, and I really thank all of you for doing what you do, because we need folks like all of you to continue to take care of our community. I know it's personal to many of us, and it'll always be. My son's active duty Navy corpsman, so it continues in the Lewis family. Thank you all.
Thank you.